Hey, Comcovers. So we're back for our second part of Nigeria's Society of a three-part video series. All right, so today we're going to do social movements. And so yesterday we were talking about some of the cleavages that were experienced in Nigeria, including the division between the North and the South. So I'm going to kind of hone down on that a little bit. In the southern part of Nigeria, it's actually considered to be um, dependent on oil. As you can see here in the Niger River Delta, there's going to be a lot of oil, and that's going to complicate things. So there have been protests because many of the major oil companies, particularly Shell, that has operated here in the southern part of Nigeria, often referred to as Ogani, has engaged in a lot of oil spills. As you can see here in the Niger River Delta, the river is quite literally burning. Um, so that makes the BP oil spill look like just a day at the park. So there have been protests that have increased since 1999, largely about oil. So Nigeria is an oil dependent. It's considered to be a one commodity country. Economically speaking, that means it is a majority dependent on oil, particularly a foreign trade, particularly with its foreign trade earnings. So the area that is oil rich and there is a lot of drilling of oil is here in the Niger River Delta, and this area, the land, is known as Ogani land. All right, and over the years, from when the British were colonizing this region, again, now you see the motivations for why the British colonized the southern part of Nigeria. It's very oil rich. Um, Foreign companies have gone in and drilled for oil, and allegedly gave the Nigerian government rent, right, for drilling there, which the very corrupt Nigerian government has historically, pre-Bendelism, profited personally. All right, so how did the Nigerian government's leaders, the dictatorial leaders, profit personally? Through the official Nigerian oil company known as the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation. And this oil corporation is run by the government, and this is most likely how the various military dictators have used oil money to personally profit. So in 2013, as again Nigeria is democratizing, the Nigerian central bank reported to the president of Nigeria at the time, his name was Goodluck Jonathan, that between 1990 and 1994, military regimes essentially stole, these are various, one regime stole $12 billion in oil money, and a subsequent regime took another $12 billion in oil money. Officially, Nigeria earns about 12 billion per year. So corrupt officials have been robbing the Nigerian people for more than half of the country's wealth. So we have that facet where we have prebendalistic practices. But the other part of this is that these foreign oil companies, particularly Shell, has gone in and drilled and then has polluted the environment of the southern part of Nigeria, as you can see here. And they have run oil pipes along this region. Many times they just break. These above ground um, pipes often break, and so oil spills are persistent and constant within southern Nigeria. As a result, we're going to start to see a popular protest movement. This was a nonviolent, peaceful protest. It's called MOSOP. It's the acronym Movement for the Survival of the Ogani People. And this is a social movement of the indigenous Ogani people. So another indigenous social movement, much like the Zapatistas in Mexico. And they basically want economic justice. They want environmental justice for the pollution of the Niger Delta. So Mosop's main leader is a guy named, he's pictured right here, Ken Sarawiwa. That's a name you need to know. And he is the one who organized a protest movement against Shell. As a result, Shell will be taken to court in federal court in New York City. It's called WeWa versus Shell. Shell essentially, over the course of its history of operating within southern Nigeria, netted 200 million in profits yearly from Nigeria, but in 40 years it only paid 2 million to the Ogoni community, whose oil it has appropriated and whose environment and land it has destroyed. And this is particularly acute considering the fact that the Ogoni people rely on the land for their livelihoods. They're often farmers, and when farmers have land that is polluted with oil, it ruins their livelihoods. So in 1995, the world community was outraged when Ken Saro-Wiwa was summarily executed by the Nigerian government, along with 9 other Ogoni who were protesting against the government for cooperating with Shell and the corruption associated with squandering all of the oil money away from the Ogoni people. So Ken Saro-Wiwa continues to be a battle cry for this movement that is still in existence and continues to be nonviolent. So here is a video um, by the Criminal Constitutional Court, and they put this together. This is about 8 minutes, so settle in. Um, this one takes about 8 minutes. All right, guys. So that's Ken Sarawiwa and the Mosop movement for the survival of the Ogani people. There has been a movement that has gone more militant with regard to this issue. The movement for the emancipation of the Niger Delta, also known as MEND, is one of the largest militant groups in the Niger Delta region. And it takes a very different approach, much more violent approach to demanding the rights of the Ogani people. And what they want is to deliver benefits of the oil revenue to the local community so that that the environmental damage that has been done by foreign direct oil investments by Shell and others would go to remediation of the Niger River Delta. Um, all right, so let's keep going. Real quick, political participation, not active. Most Nigerians are not particularly active because of a history of corruption and prebendalism. So, this should be kind of familiar to you. Participation has been through patron-client systems, and this is, again, patronage, supporting the PDP or supporting the military government. And as a result of supporting the military government, there was a large patronage network that kept various Nigerians loyal to the movement, but again, very corrupt. So corruption is another big part. Prebendalism, or the personalized system of rule in which all public officials are treated as personal fiefdoms. So this was like the Abacha administration that had essentially executed Ken Saro-Wiwa. Abacha personally believed that this was his Nigeria and that he could profit and benefit and reign as he sees fit. As a result, corruption is a big part of the Nigerian history and reasons why many Nigerians do not participate. Voting behavior, as you can imagine, has been falling. Um, some of the major elections that of note, remember that true democracy, or at least on paper democracy, really didn't start until 1999. Um, there were elections prior to this. However, there were sham elections. And Babangida, one of the military dictators that I had mentioned before, actually just annulled the 1993 election. And of course, this is just elections have just lost credibility within the Nigerian state. In 2003, um, about 67% of eligible voters participated, and you could see kind of the optimism here, but it's been falling ever since. 2015 it was 44%, and the lowest of them all is the most recent election in 2019 at about 35%. So voter participation has been falling. So the reason attitudes of citizens towards its own government is distrust. Here's two of the military dictators that have been of note. Here is, I don't know if you meant, if you remember me at the beginning of this video talking about how previous military dictators had stolen like $12 billion in oil revenue. Well, these were the two guys that did it. It was Abacha, General Abacha, and Ibrahim Babangida. So Abacha actually died while in office unexpectedly, and citizens took to the streets and dubbed the event a coup from heaven. Right? They were so overjoyed by Abacha's sudden demise. Um, Another, but subsequent to him, uh, is Ibrahim Babangida, who was just as corrupt, and democracy continued to struggle in the 1980s and 1990s, and it continues into today. So the media uh, has improved its free and independent press during its Fourth Republic or since 1999. The government does allow free speech and free press, unlike what you saw under military dictatorship with the Mossop movement. So Abacha attempted to curb criticism against his regime because he was largely unpopular. Remember, coup from heaven, by closing several newspapers who were just criticizing him. He figured if we just shut down the press, then no bad press, and that's good. Um, the press also does reflect ethnic divisions within the country. In the south part, it is a little more developed. Cities are a little more modern, and as a result, free press is a little stronger in the south as opposed to the rural north. The rural north, there's very limited TV and print media access. So again, it does reflect tensions. Radio is actually the main source of information for most Nigerians, with all 36 states having their own radio station. There are international organizations that are there in Nigeria, particularly CNN, BBC, and the New York Times. Internet access is about 60%, cell phone access about 80%, just to give you an idea. All right, we're going to conclude this video and we'll pick it up with part 3 soon. See ya. Stay safe, guys. Bye.